webinar has a lot of detail. So as we go through, I would like you to be thinking, okay, you can go back afterwards and download the PDF and then read and reflect on some of the details afterwards. So I think that's a good idea, especially with something like writing, where it often needs a little bit of thinking. So I've called it teaching writing concepts because I think sometimes these concepts need to be taught even separately from the context. We want to reduce the learning burden on the students, and we also perhaps sometimes, because writing is kind of left to the last, introduce some concepts of writing and let the learners play with these concepts so that they kind of feel familiar and gain confidence with all the different aspects of writing. Okay, so having said that, let's carry on. People talk about writing needing rules and also writing not needing rules, and I guess it's a whole balance of doing that, so just wanted to acknowledge that at the beginning. I have two sets of learning outcomes. Don't be shocked, there's quite a few of them. And the first one really is about that, the passing on the key writing learning concepts. We want learners to be able to plan and write anything. Okay, and I'm going to get you to teach your learners how to use a really simple checklist for both sentences and paragraphs. I'm also going to cover how topic sentences with topic and controlling focus are really key and important, and very briefly we'll model 3 ways to write a paragraph. Okay, so then everyone ready for the ride? Okay, so sentences. When learners are writing, they can write some kind of sentence, and you might say to them, oh, this is not right, or this grammar needs attention, or you haven't got a full stop, and it's kind of like a whole lot of little things, and it can put the learners into overwhelm. So I've devised this little checklist, and so when learners are writing something, you can either direct them to this checklist, or they can refer to it themselves when they're editing, and it seems to cover kind of a lot of things. So let's have a look at some examples. Now, for example, if the learner has written or is reading number 1, high school leavers enroll in vocational courses every year, you can just say the same thing, like a key message. Is it a sentence? And we go back up to the checklist and discover that, well, actually looks like a sentence, but it's not a sentence because it doesn't have a capital letter, doesn't have a full stop. Next sentence, it is a sentence, though not a great one. You know, there's a few things to correct, but it does have all of those things in the checklist. Number 3, is it a sentence? Yes or no. For interaction here, you could say, you can type in yes or no, but look at that. It doesn't have a full stop at the end, so no, it's not a sentence. And 4, is it a sentence? Okay, let's have a look at this one. Yep, perfect, it covers all of the checklist. And number 5, no, because of course it has 2 different ideas. These 2 different ideas maybe look a little crazy because they're so different, and learners might not naturally write such different ideas in one sentence. But it's nice as a concept because later on, when they have 2 different ideas in their writing, you can just say to them, look at the checklist, and then is it a similar idea or a different idea? Okay, and just trying to get them to sort of get a good feel or sense of the different concepts in writing. Okay, so the same thing can be done with paragraphs. Again, very simple conceptual list that a paragraph is a group of sentences joined together, not a list. It's about the same topic, indented in many ways, and short or long. Okay. So if we were to ask a learner, is this a paragraph? Then they would go back to their checklist and say, no, it's a list. So the sentences are not joined together, therefore it's not a paragraph. What about number 2? Is this a paragraph? Now I'm aware that, for time and reading and reflection, I might be rushing you a wee bit, but bear with me. If you read that, you realize that actually we have a different topic suddenly in that paragraph. Shift work is challenging and tiring. So popping a different topic in there means that that is not a paragraph yet. So if you are working with a learner who suddenly puts one new idea into a paragraph and everything else kind of matches okay, then you might suggest to them to think about whether it needs its own paragraph. You may even remove that idea and it could become the topic sentence for a new paragraph. So here's another example, example number 3. Again, same checklist. And here we have something that often happens as students are writing. They start off with one idea and then they start going on a little journey to a different idea. So they end up with 2 topics in one paragraph. Therefore, this is not yet a paragraph according to our checklist. This is where perhaps the idea of a topic and a controlling focus can start coming in, because notice how they started with this paragraph. The topic is learning how to take good notes. The controlling focus is worthwhile, and halfway through we have a new topic and another controlling focus, basically another complete idea. And that is, it can look as if it really matches, but in fact it doesn't. And I think what we're trying to do here is to get students to be really analytical by going back to this basic checklist. So another example here, a paragraph, again, with our checklist. I'll give you a minute just to read these. Are they paragraphs? Okay. The sentences are joined together. Good. Yep. About the same topic. Indented in many ways. Yep. We've got justified and we've got indented. Short or long. We've got a long one and a short one. So are 4 and 5 paragraphs? Yes, they are. Notice that we have here the topic, note-taking, has 2 controlling focuses, or foci. I like the word focuses, so I'll stay with that. An A and a B. They're kind of loosely connected, they're not too different. Okay, so there's discussion to be had with your learners. What constitutes a completely different main point that needs to be removed and made into a new paragraph, and what constitutes something that's loosely connected and can probably stay? Nice discussion there. So I think we have here a little bit about valuable skill. Might even have a little arrow here. First part is connected to valuable skill, and the second part is about note-taking strategies. In my opinion, that fits together nicely, and I think those 2 controlling focuses are closely enough connected that they can stay in the same paragraph. Alrighty. So here we have a question. Why on earth is indenting in the list? Okay. To me, this is a really great time to learn about text types and different formatting required for different text types. I mean, magazines and so on often have like hanging indent or you know, a lot of the internet stuff now it's all justified. But, you know, let's have a look at some of them. From our website, we have justified on the side, but not on the left side, but not on the right side. We have a nice little line space between each paragraph. We have something from Little Pig, so we've got different indentation. And yeah, all the different text types have different indentations. My suggestion is to get a whole lot of different ones and put them all over the table for learners to look at. So when they're looking about how things are indented, they realize that, in fact, in order to understand the text type that they're aiming for, they'll need to use perhaps a certain type of indentation. Anyway, it seems to work. It's a really good one to have a try with. Okay, have a little PowerPoint here on what is indenting, and there are a lot of different types. Really good to spend a bit of time on for language and text features and formatting. Okay. So, moving on, we are going to look at basic paragraph structures here. We have two. We've kind of looked at them already. We have a topic sentence, which has a topic and controlling focus, and a few supporting sentences, and then an optional concluding sentence. Or in the one where we decided that the two different controlling focuses were connected closely enough, we can have a supporting sentence for focus A with some support under that, and something for focus B with support under that. So those are two basic structures. I don't know about you, but I really like to have an overview of what a paragraph is, and I think that our learners would probably benefit from having something like this on the wall as part of, you know, thinking about paragraphs. Some of the people that I've been working with in the workshops have said, oh, their learners are probably at too basic a level to write a paragraph. But the interesting thing is that after they've completed this exercise that we're about to do now, they've realized that, in fact, even a very low-level learner is able to write a paragraph if we sort of work at it in the right way. I think raising our expectations and scaffolding with some kind of conceptual teaching like this really does help. Okay, so this is about topic sentences. I just love them. I think they're underrated. I think they're fantastic. And so here's a wee teaching sequence for you to use with your learners. So how do we start our learners to start writing a paragraph? Well, the main thing is initially reduce the learning burden. Is it worth the time teaching topic sentence structure, practicing creating topics and their controlling focuses? Yep, the answer is a definite yes. Okay. Are you ready? Okay. Shall we try it? So basically, when you are reducing the learning burden, rather than go directly into something which involves context and maybe a whole lot of vocabulary that's new and skills that are new and ideas that are new, let's start with something really simple, like an easy topic, dogs, and later on the learners can transfer this knowledge to their own context. Okay, so you ask your learners to think about dogs, and of course, each learner calls to mind their own version of dog, and some are still thinking about the weekend. I mean, how many times have we introduced a topic, and you can just imagine what kind of ideas start formulating in each and every learner's mind, and how do we bring focus? A really good way to bring focus is actually to start getting them to play with the whole focus issue. Okay. Get your learners really happy and comfortable with topics and controlling focuses. So just have your learners brainstorm as many different controlling focuses for dogs as possible. Okay. Elicit, they'll have their own ideas. Okay. So again, point out to them that the controlling focus is something that will then create the content. It will direct the content of the paragraph, and the topic remains the same, but look how many different focuses we can have. So we can then bring through one of those examples to show one way of writing a paragraph. For example, question answer. I've brought through the example, dogs are sometimes friendly to cats. And then you can get your learners to ask a question in their minds about this controlling focus. So it could be something like, when can this happen? Just writing the answer can bring focus to a paragraph. So here's a paragraph prepared earlier. Dogs are sometimes friendly to cats. Okay, have a wee read of this. I'll give you a minute. And it is just the answer to this question, when can this happen? We don't write the question, we think up the question. And by just writing an answer to that question, we have a nice, focused paragraph. Okay, shall I move on? Okay. So, getting your learners to think of a whole lot of questions can be a really great exercise for them. So you have the topic and the controlling focus, and they can think of so many questions. I think, again, underestimated how often the teacher thinks of the question and how the learner really doesn't have this practice of thinking up questions. And so if I said to you here, what question has been answered below, have a wee read. And if you want to be interactive, you can even type the answer. Very good. Having the idea that probably the typing, there's a delay coming through cyberspace, but you'll see there that, very good. Thank you very much, Alan. You're correct. Okay. So what story do I know about a dog who has cared for a cat? There's the answer, and look at that nicely focused paragraph. As I've got in the red there, another really great exercise is get the learners into groups, make writing fun and interactive, large sheets of paper. They write their paragraph. Maybe they all have exactly the same topic and controlling focus, but and then when they're finished, the learners run around the different big pieces of paper and try to guess which question, and maybe write the question to see if and that's one good way of checking whether or not your paragraph is really focused, if it's really clear what question it's answering. All right, so then you could bring another of the examples we had in that list of topic and controlling focuses to show another way of writing a paragraph, and I call it the examples way of writing a paragraph. You'll find that different topics and different controlling focuses kind of lend themselves to the different ways of writing a paragraph, and they can be mixed and matched as well. And, but let's just do a pure example one here. So, dogs come in many shapes and sizes. Look, I'm sorry, maybe someone can help me here. I'm not sure if Great Dane should be capitalized or not. I'm obviously not a step 6 yet in the writing, but anyway, so we've got the magic number 3 for example. So there are huge Great Danes, 1, and medium-sized dogs like spaniels and some poodles, 2, and the very small dogs, 3. Okay. So this is a really nice way to get some focus, and I think when learners are beginning their paragraph writing career, that an examples paragraph is a really good way to start. So bring another of the examples to show another way of writing a paragraph, and proof is this one. Some people say evidence. I like to call it proof because then you can say to your learners, if they have a particular controlling focus, prove it. And this is quite good because it can then lead on to research-based citations or quotes, you know, when they're doing research-based essays. Let's look at an example. Okay, seen some really good Animal Planet things on this. So dogs have a highly developed sense of smell. Nice one to just say, prove it. Okay, so here's some proof. Experiments have been conducted to show that even if their toys, food, or items of clothing are locked inside containers, dogs are still able to smell them and so track them down. Dogs are able to sniff out drugs at airports and track lost hikers or people on the run. Okay, so there's a whole lot of proof that they have highly developed sense of smell. Of course, this is anecdotal, and as I said, this kind of paragraph is really great for later on going into the research. Sorry, I was just looking at the, yes, I think it is a lowercase letters for Great Danes and Spaniels and Poodles. I think if it's something like Siamese cat, if it's the name of a country sort of or something in there, then we have a capital S, but hey, that's something for us to do some professional development on. Okay. So how is this going with these three ways to write a paragraph? I do believe that these concepts in the summary are really good and really fun to spend even 1, 2, or even 3 sessions on with your learners. Once learners understand how they can answer something and how they can organize their answers, then it can even transfer to a workbook answer where they're asked to perhaps talk about what tools they've used for building a certain thing, you know, in a construction manual, you know, and they can say, well, we can use example, you know, this tool, and this tool. Or you might say, I'd use a hammer and then prove it, you know. It's better to use a hammer because this, and this, and this. So you're actually giving evidence and proof. Then the checklists in the summary, I believe, reduce the learning burden for trainees because they just can go straight back to that, and sort of it's a nice way to check their sentences and paragraphs. Yep, so nearly there. And summary for learning outcomes B. Getting learners to organize their minds, knowing that one main idea, one paragraph, the whole paragraph can be controlled by the topic sentence, and actually the learners learn how to control this with by having played with their topic and controlling focus, you know, in the exercises we did earlier. That building learner confidence by modeling those 3 ways, that I have found over the years, learners have said to me that they actually feel confident approaching their paragraphs and their essay writing, knowing those 3 ways. Okay, so at this point, if anyone has any questions, I will finish in just a few moments, but I might be able to answer 1 or 2 questions. But basically, that is the end of the webinar, and I really appreciate you signing in to listen. As I said, you may need to return to the PowerPoint just to review them before trialing them with your learners, and always feel free to email me with questions or comments. Okay. I'll wait a couple of minutes for any questions. Okay, I think sounds like everyone's fairly happy, and perhaps Dylan, could you? Very good. So Dylan's explained how to get the PowerPoint. And yes, Annette, please share this PowerPoint with your tutors. I think that's why I made it fairly detailed, and you will be able to use that with them. I'm also hoping at some point to talk about how to plan a whole essay and perhaps a bit more detail on things like paragraph construction, which would be tutor PD. All right, lovely. Well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure, and thank you, Dylan, for all your help today, getting us all logged in. It's lovely. Okay, I'll say over and out. Bye-bye.